Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I did a previous video about the Laowa 7.5mm ultra wide angle prime lens. And I mentioned that it took 2 copies for me to get one that was sharp across the frame. And somebody asked a question in the comments about how you test a lens. Really, it's important to test a lens during the return window from whoever you bought it from. Now, you can do things like shoot a brick wall at various f-stops and look at that. But with an ultra-wide lens like this, I think that might be problematic because you got to be pretty close to the wall to, not get the edges of the wall in the frame, depending. I prefer just to go out into a wooded area and take some shots and look at the sharpness of the branches across the frame and any other features. Because that's going to tell you right away, because branches, especially on a nice bright day, are going to have a lot of contrast between them and the sky, and you should see no differences as far as sharpness across the frame. If you see one side or one corner that's softer than the others, that's indicative of some sort of misalignment in the lens elements, whether it's decentering or whether there's a tilted element. So you really want to find that during the return window. And, these things happen. I've had it happen in the past. The Canon 15 to 85mm EFS lens, which was for their APS-C bodies. I bought one, and at certain points in the focal range, even stopped down to like f8. The right side and mostly the top right corner was soft. I mean, it was pretty bad. And I bought it from a bricks and mortar store, so I went back and got another copy. Didn't buy it. They had one other copy, so they let me put it on the camera. I went outside, I shot with it, and it was soft on the left side of the frame. And anyone who remembers that lens and used that lens knows that if you looked on the internet, a lot of people got copies that had that issue. So it's not something that's unheard of. I think copy-to-copy variation actually has gotten better for probably all manufacturers than it was back 10 or so years ago. So I don't think it's as big a deal, but you really do need to check to make sure. So anyway, getting to the point of this video, this of course is the manual version of the Laowa. There's a newer version that has electronic aperture, which is controlled from the camera. But on this, of course, that costs more money. On this one, you have manual focus, which the new one's still manual focus, but you have manual aperture. And with this kind of lens, it's really tough to judge what's in focus because there's so much there. And even if you stop this lens down to f8 or so, what happens, and I've run into this situation, is the things like focus peaking, which you can turn on in the camera, don't give a real accurate view of what's in focus. You can see the peaking around the edges in the front or the back end of the depth of field, and in actuality those are not sharp. And I had it happen last week where I was shooting up into a nice canopy of golden maple trees, and the leaves furthest from the camera were actually soft. And that wasn't what I wanted. Of course, through habit, I deleted those frames, so I can't show them to you. Whoops. But I went back out with the camera, and in general, I don't use a tripod, especially for a lens like this, and especially on bodies like Lumix bodies that have really good image stabilization. But what I did is I went out and I mounted it on a tripod in the same spot. And I have a little clip that goes through using the depth of field scale, which is on this lens, and using focus peaking. And one thing, the default focus peaking color, I'm pretty sure, because I don't think I set it on the Lumix cameras, is blue edges around what's sharp. You can actually adjust that, because if you're shooting yellow maple leaves against a blue sky, blue isn't going to help you very much. So if you go into the little customization icon in the menu, which is the wrench with a C, and then click on operation and on display, you click on display and you'll see the peaking setting, and if you click on that and the on off, you'll also see an option called set. And when you click on set, you can change the color. So what I did was I changed the color to green, which you can actually see. So take a look at this this clip. I apologize, I did this with my iPhone, a little bit shaky, but I think it gets the point across. And I'm also going to talk about a little bit of the adjustments that I did to the image to make it look the way I want it to. So let's have a look at that clip, and I will have some final thoughts after that. So here I'm using the Laowa 7.5mm f2 lens on a Lumix G95, and I'm taking a photo of this canopy in this autumn forest in Thatcher Woods. And I just thought what I would do is show people how to make sure you get everything in focus, because even at stop down at like f8 where we're at now, is if you have this camera focused too closely, like you're focusing on the close leaves, what you'll find is that the leaves at the very top, farthest away, are going to be out of focus. And I discovered this just the other day. So what do? So one of the things you can do when you're focusing on a scene like this is, since this is a manual focus only lens, is use focus peaking. And here I've set the peaking color to green, so you can see that green outline here. And this is the magnified window, and it shows what things are in focus. But one of the things you can see is in the area right down here, that is the farthest, that's the tallest tree. And actually those leaves are not in focus. So, and we're actually almost at infinity. So if you look at the focusing scale here, we're really close to infinity. So in actual fact, the best thing to do here is just to focus, actually this lens focuses slightly past infinity, is to just focus at infinity, and then really at f8, everything from infinity to half a meter, so 1.64 feet, everything is going to be focused. So that's using the focus scale here. So if I zoom in on the focus scale, it's the other way that you can set focus. And this is old school, because when my first series camera, which was a Canon AT1 with a 50mm kit lens, I don't think anybody called it that at the time, but there was a focusing scale on that lens. And so the way this works is, if you look here at the aperture ring, and of course this is an f2 lens, so you can set it, the aperture ring here, because it's totally manual. And let's just say you are using f5.6. If you turn the infinity mark to f5.6, and you'll see there's f5.6 on the other side. And so here, everything from infinity to f5.6 to less than half a meter, probably around a foot on the other side, should be in focus. But what I have found is, on this lens, this scale is a little imprecise. So really, between these two methods, I'm not sure which one is better. My advice is, if you're taking a shot like this, just set the lens at infinity, because as you can see at f8, everything that is in, if I set it to f8, everything from past infinity down to half a meter will be in focus. So you're assured that this entire area is in focus. And you can see now that looking at those tallest leaves, the tallest tree, you see some green around them. So they're in focus. And there's nothing closer than 1/2 meter in this image. The other thing you can do is focus bracket. So take a couple, like 3 shots, and just vary the focus a little bit. Because that way you won't be surprised when you get home and you look at them on the computer, as I had happen to me, and find that, whoa, even though this is a really ultra-wide angle lens and it has very deep depth of field, it's still possible to have things go out of focus. And of course, if you're going to print something big like this, you want everything in focus. So that's that story. So this really is a good little lens, but you have to learn how to use it because it's actually not a simple lens. This is the first frame I shot, and as you can see, it's really important when using an ultra-wide angle lens on a camera on a tripod pointed up that you make sure you get your head out of the frame, because that's what that is at top left of center. I also used the 2-second self-timer, and I turned off image stabilization. Although I've never really had an issue with image stabilization use on a tripod, but that turning it off is recommended. And so then I got home and popped the image in Lightroom and did some adjustments. So generally what I do is I'll use the auto tone feature and then just adjust a little bit after that. But in addition to that, what I did here is I went into the HSL color panel. HSL stands for hue, saturation, and luminance. And so what I did was darken the luminance of the blue channel and then lighten the luminance of the yellow and orange channel. I tried using the new masking feature that they just added to Lightroom for this, and it wasn't optimal. It does a good job in finding the sky, and you can find the rest of the image just by doing a new mask, find sky, but click invert. Select subject does not work very well because there's really no clear subject in the image. But I wasn't really pleased with how it looked, a little artificial. And this is less so. You also notice something about this image, and that is that the sun is off to the right side, and you can see that there's a gradation in the blue of the sky. And that's why I don't use a polarizer, because a polarizer will really accentuate that with an ultra-wide lens. So I don't recommend doing that. It's easy enough to go into Lightroom and deepen the sky rather than using a polarizer. The other reason for a polarizer is to take the sheen off the leaves, but since the light in this image is not reflecting off those leaves, it's diffusing through them, so that light coming through those leaves is not polarized, so there's really no need for a polarizer here. And so just to reiterate, if you're using this lens for images like that, I think the best thing to do is set the focusing scale to the infinity mark. And that way, everything's going to be, f8, everything's going to be in focus from infinity or past infinity to really close to the camera. And you can do things like bracket focus. So take 3 or 4 shots with the focus adjusted a little bit so that when you get back home and look at things on your computer, because it's still really hard to judge in the viewfinder or even on the LCD screen. But that way, when you get home, you'll find one of those is probably going to satisfy you. Anyway, I hope this was helpful and informative to you. If so, please hit that thumbs up button. That's a big help because that tells YouTube that people want to watch this video. And any comments, questions, observations, pop them into the comments. I try to respond to all comments. So anyway, go out, take pictures, enjoy what's left of autumn here in the Northern Hemisphere, and enjoy spring in the Southern Hemisphere. And I'm Todd Banner. I will see you next time.